I'd like to invite you to come with me and imagine this scene. Bare feet digging into hard gravel, an icy wind stinging my cheeks. I was standing by a river. There was a swift current. Bodies upon bodies were being swept away in it. I could tell that these people weren't dead. They were asleep, oblivious as the waters carried them toward sharp rocks. I turned around to look for help and saw an old lady sitting at a desk holding a notebook. I tried to alert her about the people, but she simply turned her book toward me. The pages were full of my childhood drawings. Suddenly, I became aware of these young boys racing toward the water's edge. I tried to stop them, but they jumped in anyway. The old woman disappeared, and the pages of my notebook started flying in the wind. I woke up, knowing what I had to do. I had to fulfill my desire to make art. If I tried anything else, I would save no one, least of all myself. I have always been a bit of a dreamer. For as long as I can remember, I felt that something was off within me. I was different, and I needed to fix myself to fit in this world. In modern terms, I felt like an impostor from the get-go. Amidst these troubling thoughts, drawing was my outlet. I drew obsessively, and my dream was to become an artist. But I grew up in small-town India, in a middle-class family, where such things felt kind of impossible. Guided sensibly by my parents, I pursued economics instead of art and landed a job in the advertising industry in Mumbai. My protective parents insisted that I live in a working women's dorm, but it felt very much like a prison, complete with bad food, limited visitation rights, and some troubled inmates. And to top it all off, they set to work arranging my marriage. Now, for a young person, the career you pursue and who you marry are some of the most important decisions of life. And I was about to be robbed of both. At this point, no wonder, I had a mental breakdown. It didn't help that at my job, we worked long hours for a low pay. Everyday misogyny and harassment were the norm. Here again, I could tell the difference between myself and my colleagues. I didn't belong in this sophisticated big city and was waiting to be found out for my lack of street smarts. During breaks, my coworkers smoked outside the office while I cried in the bathroom. One day, my skip-level manager pulled me aside and said, "This won't do." And then she added, "I'm going to teach you to chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo." She told me that she practiced a form of Buddhism in which there is no concept of God. Instead, you place your faith in yourself, in your innate potential. This potential, or Buddhahood, exists within each of us, and it's the source of limitless wisdom, courage, and compassion. Chanting is a way to draw these resources out from within ourselves so we can face all our challenges. I came to understand that I was fully equipped to be in control of my life. Even so, this was not a simple decision. I was wary of organized religion, and I knew nothing about Buddhism. This lady, though, she was a successful, unmarried woman living by herself in India's biggest city. Clearly, her parents didn't run her life. The importance of role models cannot be overstated. Fortunately, in my own case, I had met both a role model and a life philosophy all at once. Saying yes to Buddhism was the first independent decision of my life and one that changed its trajectory. Now, a core principle of Buddhism is the oneness of self and environment. Even our bodies are a microcosm of the universe. Made of the same matter, they go through the same cycles of formation and disintegration that pervade the cosmos. When we chant, we are at once put in touch with the power that is within us, but also the vast power of the universe. And things that are connected, they can influence each other. Put simply, the world impacts us, so it must be true that we can impact it too. The next time you feel stuck, pause and acknowledge this interconnection. And if you want to change your environment, start by changing the thing that you are most immediately in control of: yourself. As for me, up until this point, I had greatly feared my environment. Survival, therefore, meant fitting in. And whenever I didn't blend in or measure up, I felt vulnerable and full of self-doubt, like an impostor. Buddhist thinking helped me break this cycle. Recognizing my Buddhahood was like replacing a distorted mirror with a clear one. For the first time, I could really see that I had agency in all circumstances, and that I was, in fact, the hero of my life. And this is what this talk is really about: that shift from feeling like an imposter to becoming the protagonist. Shortly after I began practicing Buddhism, I stood up for myself and married a partner of my own choosing. A few months later, we unexpectedly immigrated from India to America. And in the United States, for the first time in my adult life, I decided to take art classes. In the face of change, my self-doubt reared its head again, and I became conflicted about doing something just for my own happiness, without the guarantee of success. Instead, I considered art therapy, which involved encouraging others to surface their suppressed thoughts through art. I would be helping others and also present myself as a professional. It was safe, a more practical and noble option. But it also meant that I wouldn't be making art myself, which was deeply saddening and also a little bit tempting. I wouldn't have to find out if I had any talent or not. I tortured myself over this for weeks, chanting to understand the right course of action. Then one night, I had that vivid dream, which I shared with all of you at the start. My childhood drawings held up to my face by my elderly self. A world of beings I couldn't rescue because I had ignored my own yearnings. From the moment I woke up from my dream, I was fully committed to becoming an artist, whatever it took. Clearly, in order to live out our dreams, we have to overcome many obstacles, including our own cowardice. But also, there isn't this binary choice between selfishness and selflessness. Instead, our hero's journey, this brave pursuit of our dreams, it is inextricably connected to the unique way in which we add value to the world. The Buddhist philosopher Daisaku Ikeda has said it best. We are here to change the world through our inner transformation. Here's how this played out for me. My husband and I set ambitious goals for our new life in America. Mine was art school, his was an MBA. And then there was the question of starting a family. Most people might think that any one of these goals could cancel out the other two. But as Buddhists, we had this conviction that we could expand our capacity and do it all. My husband took on a part-time MBA while working full-time to support us. My son was 3 months old when I went back to school. Looking back, my overwhelming memory of this time is exhaustion. Waking up at all hours to breastfeed while simultaneously working on assignments. Leaving home at 7 a.m., coming back at 9 p.m., lugging my breast milk pump on my back. Design education also required me to immerse myself in a foreign culture. The gaps in my knowledge were like gaping chasms. Not to mention the impostor syndrome that hit me as an adult Indian student, a decade older than my culturally savvy 17-year-old American classmates. Against these odds, my project seldom hit the mark, and critiques with professors and fellow students were brutal. My work also fell short of my own expectations. I had sufficient good taste to know that what I was making wasn't good. It was really tempting to blame my circumstances. Everything would have been so much easier if I had only had the chance to study art at a younger age. It was my Buddhist friends who reminded me that the lotus grows in a muddy pond. Yes, the circumstances were hard, but both the protagonist and the antagonist were within me. There's, in fact, a model in organizational behavior that mirrors this idea. It says that to go from being a bystander to a confronter, your inner dialogue has to shift from things should be different to what can I do differently. In other words, my inner response to reality would shape my future. In my final year at school, my work blossomed through a renewed sense of responsibility to go beyond our tools and theory to truly understanding the culture that I had immigrated into and how it shaped the design world that I had chosen to embrace. As a result, I was hired as a designer for my school. And then I took a summer intensive abroad where I made portfolio-worthy work and built some incredible friendships. For my graduation thesis, I made a film about my 4-hour commute, the daily struggle that was required of me to seize the chance to be an artist. I shared how this journey had become an unexpected source of inspiration and a symbol of finally reaching a long-desired goal. For this, I was awarded a Best Thesis Prize. Recommendations and coveted job opportunities followed. But most importantly, I walked away with a simple but powerful lesson. Obstacles are opportunities. Don't avoid them, use them. 14 years since graduating from art school, I have worked as a design professional at some of the most recognized brands on the planet across the fashion, tech, and beauty industries. These moves have been tough, not least because I keep choosing the most interesting growth opportunities rather than the linear fits. Changes like this are rife ground for imposter syndrome to set in. Before I worked in fashion, I had no understanding of style or photography. Moving to tech meant starting from scratch just to get a foot in the door. And let me not get started on being a Gen Xer with a job that is focused on Gen Z social trends. Sometimes I ask myself, why am I being so ambitious? As a working mother, there's a voice inside me that says that I can only be ambitious for myself or for my children. But with this protagonist mindset, there's no such thing as sacrificing my growth for my children's development, because their happiness is linked to mine, and my actions demonstrate the lessons that I want them to imbibe. When I feel like an imposter at work today, I remind myself that my perspective adds value precisely because of my nonlinear path, and that I can take responsibility for continually learning, just like I did in art school. In my latest role as a creative director, I champion marginalized communities and address societal norms about beauty and self-worth at its core. Once an immigrant standing outside culture, I now play a role in shaping trends and mentoring professionals. As I look back at over a decade of working as an artist, I am reminded of a quote by Nichiren, the 13th century monk who established the Buddhism that I practice today. He said, "Could there be a more wonderful story than your own?" For me, this quote perfectly sums up the protagonist mindset. I encourage each of you to reach within and author your wonderful story that is based on a never give up attitude and daily relentless effort that is rooted in your inner wisdom, your courage, and your compassion. Thank you so much.